of evolution.
Excuse me?
Yes, Ben.
How did life begin in the first place?
Mr. Stein, you have the same question every time.
Well, you never answer it, sir.
It develops, you know, we've been through this so many times, you have me
Could
so...
there have been an intelligent designer?
So what are you here for?
I made a movie.
Join Ben Stein in this year's most controversial documentary film.
If they value their careers, they should keep quiet about their intelligent design views.
I was viewed as an intellectual terrorist.
I have never been treated like this in my 30 years in academia.
I lost my job.
It's a funny thing that questions that aren't properly answered don't go away.
How did we get from an inorganic world to the world of the cell?
It might have started off on the backs of crystals.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. So intelligent designers believe that God is the designer.
God is about as unlikely as fairies, angels, hobgoblins, etc.
Science makes no use of the hypothesis of God.
I mean, it's essentially official policy of the National Academy of Science that religion and science will not be related.
There are people out there who want to keep science in a little box where it can't possibly touch a higher power, cannot possibly touch God.
Must be some movie.
Expelled. No intelligence allowed, only in theaters. Opens nationwide this Friday, April 18th. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
It's awesome.
God from the schools and our government practices, then we end up with a lack of trust in God. And so why does it matter? We saw that on the videos. And the lack of evidence that the people talked on the videos, why is it lacking? Why can't we teach in school what we clearly see in nature, and that is a design, that we are the product of a design. And so that's what today's lesson is over, is this design. And I've read a bunch of creation stuff, and one of the things that I read about the design of an atom and how they come together to make molecules which forms stuff was written by a Muslim, because they believe God created. And Ben Stein is a Jew, and he believes God created. And so, but then we end up with this atheistic worldview in the schools, and an idea that God did not create, that it just created itself and then organized itself, and then somehow that's how we end up with everything that we have. And God created is a scientific theory. We didn't get to observe that. We did not get to watch him make man from the dust. So that's unobservable. But that doesn't mean that it's not true. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. And we can see his creation and know that he created it. And so just this building, for an example, it's a building, it has a builder. We can look at it and see the organization that goes into building the building and know and trust that there was a builder that built the building. There was an engineer that designed the building. And so God wants us to seek him. And so in Acts 17:27, God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. In Hebrews 11:6, and without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. And so we need this desire for God to seek him and to see what he has made. David tells Solomon in 1 Chronicles 28:9, if you seek him, he will be found by you. We are also told to seek him in Deuteronomy 4:29 and Jeremiah 29:13. So he wants us to seek him, and then he tells us where we can find him. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. Isaiah 6:3, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. And so, no, I can't get on my phone and call him and speak to him, but I can know he exists by what he has made. You can go to the slide with artwork. Back a slide. It says artwork, artist, made, maker, built, builder. Okay, so if we look through nature and we see art, then there must have been an artist. The talk about the DNA being the book for life. Well, book, that requires an author. Made, maker, built, there must have been a builder. Designed, there has to be a designer. Engineered, we need an engineer. Programmed, DNA is information that is pre-programmed into each one of us. Well, that means we need a programmer. If it's organized, there was an organizer. A system is an organized group of parts that work together to carry out a function, and so they have to be organized. So God tells us that the earth is full of his glory, and this can be clearly seen. If we can see a creation, then there must be a creator. The butterflies. So these are oil paintings that are clearly the work of an artist, and all the intricate details that went into the painting of the butterflies and the flowers on the canvas. And so wouldn't the real butterflies and flowers with all their intricate colors and patterns also be the work of an artist? If you've ever caught a butterfly and looked at it closely, or maybe some other kind of insect, a ladybug, and you look at it closely, it looks like it's been painted. My daughter found a stick bug and looked at it, and she says, it looks exactly like a stick. And I'm like, yeah, it does. It's long and skinny, but then if you look at it closely, it looks like it's been painted like a stick. It's not just long and skinny and brown. It has little markings on it that are darker spots here and lighter spots there to make it look exactly like a stick. And so that's artwork. That takes artistic ability to make something look like it's been painted. That requires an artist. And why is the flower so colorful anyway? And why does it smell good but taste bad? Most flowers don't get eaten. So the next slide with the deer. And here we have a deer eating an apple, and an apple comes from an apple blossom on an apple tree. So an apple tree produces a flower that has an attractive appearance and odor to the insects. The insects then can come get some nectar from the flower and spread the pollen to other flowers. The flower is very attractive, but animals will not eat it because it has a bitter taste. Did a tree get to pick what the flower looked, smelled, and tasted like? Does it know what chemicals will attract the insects, prevent it from getting eaten, and how to make those chemicals? Obviously not. It's designed that way by a designer who does know. This tree is not a master chemist that's able to put this all together in a way that's attractive to the insects, a deterrent to things that might eat it, and make chemicals that protect it. The flower is now fertilized and produces an apple. The apple is a protective covering for the seeds. The apple is colorful, produces a scent, and is flavorful. This attracts the deer and other things, like maybe me. It appears that the apple wants to get eaten. Can it want anything? Does the tree know what chemicals the deer will like to eat and what color and smell will attract it? The apple is designed to be eaten by the deer and other animals by an intelligent designer known as God. The seed will get eaten with the apple. The seed coat gives it protection from the digestive system of the deer, as the rest of the apple provides the deer with energy. Did the seed know what materials to make its coat out of to protect it from the deer's digestive chemicals? Did the apple know? Did the tree know? Obviously not. Where does the intelligence come from to attract the insects to the flower, the deer to the apple, and protect the seed from the digestive system of the deer? This is an organized plan. The organization requires an organizer. A plan requires a planner. There is an intelligent God who created it all. So we don't have to look any farther than the apple tree and the blossom on it that turns into an apple with a seed that's protected from the digestive system of the deer so that it can be excreted and grow a new apple tree. Okay, design in humans. And so the top-selling science video of all time is called The Incredible Human Machine. And so in the video, it goes through all of the organ systems and the basically incredible nature of how they're organized and work together to carry out a function. And then the systems work together so that an organism can stay alive. So we have this incredible human machine that can get its own energy. You don't have to go to the gas station and, pump us full of gas. We can obtain our own energy and then replicate ourselves. So some design in human. And so there's a few things on there. And so just some of the parts of the eye. And you have eyebrows and eyelashes that help keep dirt and dust out of your eye. Just one little speck of dirt in your eye, and that doesn't work like it's supposed to, and you're rubbing it, and you're blinking, and maybe trying to wash it out with eye drops to get it fixed. And so your eyebrows and your eyelashes help keep dust out of it. And if it gets in there, then first you're probably going to blink. And when you blink, then you have a watery fluid that also has an antiseptic in it that helps kill bacteria that might get on it. So basically you have built-in windshield wipers. And you get dust, dirt on your window of your eye called the cornea, and then your eyelid comes down and wipes it off. And the eyeball itself is firm but also squishy, and so if it gets poked, then it's not going to, pop. It's going to have some resistance to getting poked. And then it also is attached to muscles that can be pushed, that are flexible. And so if your eye gets hit, then it's most likely going to get pushed back and not damaged. And then it's encased in an eye socket, which is bone. And so we have lots of design protections for our eyes. They're very important organs, and we can see the design of them being protected. Then the design of the eye in general, and the amazing process of it being able to take in light and then turn that into a nerve impulse that goes to your brain for your brain to interpret is just incredible. The ear, and so it's shaped like a funnel to catch the sound, and it has ridges and wrinkles on it, and that helps to amplify the sound. So if you've been in an auditorium that's designed for amplifying sound, sometimes they have boxes up on the ceiling that are wrapped in like carpet, or the design of the ceiling has wrinkles in it of some kind to help amplify the sound, and all that is built into your outer ear. And so we have this funnel that has these wrinkles on it that amplify the sound, and they funnel it into an ear canal, and then the ear canal has a eardrum, or the tympanic membrane, that separates the inner ear from the outer ear, and so that keeps stuff from getting all the way in your ear, most stuff, although water can still get across that membrane sometimes and get in your ear. And so then we have this ear canal, nice little warm spot where maybe a bug would like to get in there sometime while you're sleeping, and it maybe happens every great once in a while, but not very often. Bugs don't want to get in there, even though it seems like a place they would want to get in there, because you have earwax, and earwax has a substance in it that repels them. So you have insect repellent in your earwax to keep the bugs out of your ear so that they don't get in there. They don't want to go in there. And then we get into the middle ear and the inner ear, and you have these tiny bones that transfer the sound waves into this snail-shaped thing called the cochlea. And then inside of the cochlea, there's little cells that are highly designed that are attracted is not the right word, but sensitive to different sounds. And so like a certain pitch will activate one of the cells, and then a different pitch will activate a different cell so that we can hear different pitches. And so I have something called tone deafness, where there's a certain pitch that's usually a girl's voice that I don't hear very well, and I think it's probably because I had my music cranked up when I was a kid, and my mom told me to turn it down, and I turned it down until she went away, then I turned it back up again. And so I'm worried about some of these kids that have that earbuds that are in their ear with their music turned up loud, because the next day they'll be able to hear fine, and a year from now they'll be able to hear fine, but 10 or 15, 20 years, they'll have damaged those cells that help them hear, and they'll have some of the same problems that I have. Okay, next slide. This is about bones, not a fancy picture on there, but this came from the evolution handbook that I read. And bones are the framework for your body. If you do not have them, you would lie nearly motionless on the floor like a jellyfish. Your 206 bones are all perfectly shaped to do the right job and in the right way. Each bone is somewhat different from all the others, yet perfectly designed for its task. It's connected in just the right way to perform its functions. Strong fibrous bands called ligaments hold your joints together. Each moving joint is lined with a membrane that secretes a fluid, synovial fluid, to keep the joints oiled and working smoothly. The ends of each joint has over it a plate of very smooth cartilage to provide a slick surface for rotation. Inside the bones is a spongy material called marrow. This design provides great strength, yet makes your bones much lighter in weight. Since the area inside the bones is a highly protected area, the red marrow within it contains special cells. Those cells manufacture one of the most important substances in your body, red blood. Did you know at birth you had many bones in your head, and they were all movable, so your head could squeeze through your mother's birth canal, and later they fused together? Everything is planned, very carefully planned. Your spinal bones are another total marvel. The spine is divided into a vertical stack of bones, vertebrae, all carefully connected, with a central vertical hole. Through that hole is a cable of nerves your spinal cord runs through, or down the middle, with horizontal outlets in the vertebrae so nerves can pass outward to various parts of the body. How could that complicated arrangement have invented itself? So your bones are made to make you a tower, basically. We're a walking tower. And this incredible human machine video I referred to earlier goes through the engineering that it would take to get these bones all in exactly the right arrangement so that one can push on another and we can stay upright and not only walk around but run and jump and do all these amazing things. And so to make a tower be able to do the things that our body are able to do would require engineering, which means an engineer. Muscles. And muscles are attached to your bones at exactly the right places where you'll get the best leverage. That took thinking. Downstairs in your family workshop, make a couple bones and several muscles, ligaments, tendons, and all the rest, and then figure out how the best place to locate the ends of the muscles in order to obtain the best leverage. Oh, you say you don't know how to make a muscle? Well, no one else can either. That which intelligent human beings cannot do, random actions of molecules are supposed to have accomplished. That's ridiculous. It takes engineering to engineer the muscles in the right spot to attach to the bones so that we can do all the amazing things that we can do. And they're all attached in exactly the right spot. And it wasn't a long system of trial and error. It was God's ingenuity that was there in the beginning. Other design features. Your nose is a filter. The filter stuff that's coming in. You have hairs and mucus in there that catch stuff to keep it out of your lungs. And then if you smell something and it smells bad, then don't eat it. It smells bad. There's a reason why it smells bad. Teeth, you have some that are designed for cutting, for tearing, for grinding. Your ribs are designed for protecting your internal organs that you must have, otherwise you die. Muscles stretch like a rubber band. Your fingers have little ridges on them that may resemble the treads on a tire or the bottom of your shoe, and that's for gripping. That gives you friction so you can grab a hold of something. And so, like if evolution were true, I guess, then we would have some people that didn't have those, and would they have died because they didn't have finger ridges? No, you would still be able to live and survive without them. And so nature selecting only people who have ridges, that's a ridiculous idea. Not having them, we would still be able to survive. If I didn't have ears, I would still be able to survive and produce offspring. So nature selecting what's best and then the others not being selected, that's a ridiculous idea, because we can still survive with with lots of things that would not be the best engineering choice, and yet we seem to have the best engineering choice everywhere we look because that's the only one that was designed. I probably should have talked about Common Designer earlier, and so why does it look like everything is related? And that's because we have a common designer and we're all made of the same stuff. So in my class, I use Jenga blocks and have kids make stuff out of Jenga blocks, and then when they're done, if they, like I have them make a turtle, then at the end, they all have turtles. But they're similar because they're made out of Jenga blocks and they're turtles. But none of them are the same. They're all different. I don't think I've seen 2 turtles that are the same, even though they only get 20 Jenga blocks to start with. And that's because they were using different intelligence to arrange the turtles in a different order. So that would be the instructions that it takes to build something, is what the intelligence that they use to organize the blocks to make them look like a turtle. But at the end, they're all turtles and they're made of Jenga blocks. So how would we be similar to a tree or a grasshopper or a dog? That's because we're made of the same stuff. The elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, bond in different ways to form the biomolecules that I talked about in the first week, where you have nucleic acids and proteins and carbohydrates and lipids, and then those are organized into cells. And so since have been designed by a common designer and we're made of the same building blocks, then we would have some resemblance to every other living thing on the planet, because we're made of the same stuff and designed by the same designer. But we're also very different because different instructions were used. Those turtles are all different because different ideas and arranging the blocks in different ways. In some promotions here, Darwin's Black Box is a book written by a molecular biologist who explains the complexity of a cell. And he has this word, irreducible complexity, where if you have a system and you take one part of it out, then it doesn't work. And it refers to a mousetrap quite frequently, just for something simple. And if you take any part of that out, then it doesn't work. And so if we take the cell, the simplest cell that we know of, and we start taking stuff out of it here and there, then it doesn't work. And so it wouldn't have been able to evolve. It all would have had to evolve exactly at the same time with all of the working parts, or it wouldn't have worked and we wouldn't have life. And so we see that throughout nature and throughout systems, that we have to have all of the parts there working simultaneously, or it doesn't work. And so if we take my circulatory system and, take the heart out, then it doesn't work. Or we put the heart back in and we take the aorta out, then it doesn't work. Or if we take one part of the blood out, then it doesn't work. So all the parts have to be there and functioning properly for the organism to survive with every single system that they have. Okay, next slide. And so we're an organized group of systems, and we have all these systems that have pieces that have to work together for that system to work. The respiratory, or lungs, have to be able to take in the oxygen, get it into the blood, then take the carbon dioxide out of the blood, push all of that out, and not take in other things that would be detrimental to the body, which sometimes it can. Some chemicals can get into the blood through the lungs. And then if that happens, then you have a liver that can filter that stuff out, and you have kidneys that can filter some of that stuff out, and you have white blood cells that can attack things that get in there that are not supposed to be in there. And so, just going without explaining every single one of those systems, they're all working parts that work together for that system to work, and then they all work together. The circulatory system works with the excretory system, and the respiratory system, and the nervous system, and so then they all work together to form a human. And if we start taking pieces out of those, then they don't work properly. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to die, depending on what part is removed. You know, you can take this off of my skeletal system and I'm still going to be okay. But if you take my cranium off, then my brain doesn't have protection, so then I'm not going to be okay. But all the parts have to be there working together. Next slide. The organization of our world. So we live in an organized world full of systems and cycles. The oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle, these things keep replenishing themselves. We're not ever going to run out of carbon dioxide and oxygen because they keep replenishing themselves. We take in the oxygen that the plants produce, and then we give off carbon dioxide. The plants take the carbon dioxide in, keep the carbon and give off the oxygen, and we end up with a cycle. It's designed. It's meant to be that way, so we're not ever going to run out of what we need. The same thing with the nitrogen cycle. We're not going to run out of that. It keeps replenishing itself. And so it takes intelligence to organize these things. And the intelligence comes from God, and it was there in the beginning. So in John 1 through 2, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So we have the Trinity there, and we also have the intelligence that existed for the creation. Mimicry. And so mimicry is when animals are designed to look like other animals, and camouflage is when they're designed to look like other things, like a stick bug looking like a stick. That would be called camouflage. And then mimicry if they mimic other animals. And so then we see this in nature, and there is the coral snake is venomous, and the king snake looks similar to it, and so something that was going to get the king snake might leave it alone because they would be afraid that it's venomous. The butterflies. And the monarch has chemicals in it that birds don't like, and so they leave the viceroy alone because it looks like the monarch. And the stingray, I was in the Mall of America many years ago and saw this stingray and took a picture of it. You walk through a tube, and then the water is all around you, so it's like you're walking through the aquarium. It's kind of cool. There's other ones that are like that. And so the stingray was above me, and I was looking up at it, and I took the picture looking up at the stingray. And then we get done, and out in the lobby there's a little display of horseshoe crabs. And I'd been studying creation, and I realized that the stingray and the crab look alike. And so if you can see the tail coming off of the crab would look like I guess it's a stinger coming off of the stingray. And then the slit that lets the shell move up and down on the crab would look like the mouth of the stingray, and then you have the little dotted things going around. And so it looks like a stingray. So maybe that's just an accidental coincidence, except for this happens in lots of places in nature where one thing looks like another, and it gives it protection. And so whatever might want to eat a crab is probably going to be afraid of getting eaten by the stingray, and so then if it looks like it saw a stingray, then it would swim off and leave it alone instead of trying to eat it. Okay, Polyphemus moth. A kid brought me one of these, and I put it into a display and had it all nice and neat and showed it to the class, and they're like, that looks like an owl. Well, so then I flip it over, and it looks like an owl. And so if the moth is spread out and with its head down, then you can see what looks like the brows of the owl on top, and then the eyes looking at you. And so if something wanted to eat a moth and saw an owl, then it might change its mind and decide that it's better get out of there before it gets eaten. And I think that one maybe even looks a little more like an owl. And so could this moth design itself? Did it get to pick what it looked like when it was in the cocoon? Did it get to pick what its kids were going to look like before it had them? It's all in the DNA. It's made that way. It's designed that way. It can't change its genetics. And add information and change information so that it ends up being something else. It is what its parents were, and they are what their parents were, and we get some some small differences from offspring to parent because of sharing of genetic material through sexual reproduction, but not large-scale differences between offspring and parents. So it didn't get to pick what it looked like. It doesn't get to pick what its kid looked like. And it looking like an owl gives it some protection against birds that might want to eat it. This is probably the most famous example in probably every biology book there is. It's called the hawk moth caterpillar, and it's enlarged so that we can see it, but it looks like it has the head of a snake on it. So a bird that would want to eat this caterpillar doesn't want to eat the caterpillar because it looks like a snake that might want to eat the bird. I don't actually know what this is, but when I was Googling mimicry, it came up. And so I believe it's supposed to be a moth, but it looks like some kind of predatory animal that would want to eat a bird. So if a bird wanted to eat this moth and then saw that nose and those eyes looking at it, then it probably would turn around and go the other way and leave it alone. This is called a false-eyed frog or a portrait frog, and so kind of have to read the description for you to understand what's going on with it. The false-eyed frog puts its head close to the ground, raises its rear up high, and tucks its hind legs underneath his eyes. The legs now look like a large mouth above the mouth. Where the frog once had a tadpole's tail appears a nose. It's found in South America. So when it gets scared, instead of hopping away or trying to hide underneath a bush or something, it puts its head down and pokes its butt up in the air. So how does a frog know that it has this on its rear end that looks, like something that would scare the predator away? It can't see its rear end. And, its parents didn't get to pick how it looked. It didn't get to pick how it looked. It didn't get to pick how it responded. Most of them would try to hop away or hide or do something besides put your head down and stick your butt up in the air. That's just not a natural response when something's trying to get you. But that's what the portrait frog does. And so why? Well, because that's how it was made. And it's designed that way. That's what's in its genetics. And so I think I mentioned when I'm mowing and I hit a big stump or something and I do this, and that's my response to protect the base of my brain, because that's where it controls my heartbeat and my lungs, is the medulla that's located right in there. And then I protect it, and so that's just a natural response. So the innate response of the frog is to put its head down, poke its butt up in the air, and that protects it from predators. Camouflage. Things are designed to look like inanimate objects. And by the way, I use the word designed in class a whole bunch instead of adapted, because that's what it is to me. It's designed to look that way. If a bird has webbed feet, it's designed to walk on water. And, if it has a long beak for getting nectar out of a flower, well, it's designed that way. It couldn't have adapted from some other form of thing. I joked, we've got a bunch of water, and so Colin's chicken pen gets kind of wet when that happens. So I was talking to somebody about that with his chickens, and I was like, well, maybe they'll evolve some web feet and become ducks. Just joking, because that's ridiculous. They're going to drown. They're not going to get web feet and become ducks because their chicken pen got flooded. They're going to drown. And so I call these things designs. And the walking stick I've talked about. And so next picture. Top left, that looks kind of like a leaf. It looks exactly like a leaf. You can see the veins of the leaf on the bug, and it's called a plant bug, of course. And it didn't get to choose how it looked. It didn't get to make its offspring look like a leaf to help protect it. It didn't get to make itself look like a leaf. It's in the DNA for it to look like a leaf. And it looks exactly like one. And then on the right side, you have just the camouflage of the jaguar and the leopard that helps it blend in. bottom left, that's called, there's lots of things that are called plant bugs just because they look like plants, and then they have a more scientific name. Mimicry toad. And so this blends in with its surroundings, and I don't know that it can change colors, but I think it probably can change its colors based on what its background is. Some things can do that. They can change what color they are based on what their surroundings are. So how do they know that? How do they know what color their surroundings are and then turn on or off these color pigments in their skin so that they can change colors to blend in? And it's born into them. They didn't go to, frog color changing school and learn that when they were, an infant to figure out how to change their colors. They already know how to do this. It's just built into them. Lizard that looks like a dead leaf. Again, another species of insect that has the markings of a leaf. And the Kallima butterfly. And this one's my favorite. I just think it's kind of amazing, the artwork, that it looks like somebody took a paintbrush and painted that to look exactly like a dead leaf. So when it's on the ground, it opens its wings up so it looks like a leaf laying on the ground. And then when it's on the tree, it folds them so it looks like a dead leaf on the tree. And again, that looks exactly like two leaves that are side by side. I would not think that to be a butterfly if I was walking through the forest and saw it. And, you're just going to keep on walking. You're not going to be like, oh, look at that awesome butterfly, probably. You might get lucky and see it, but you're probably just going to see a leaf. And again, it looks exactly like it's been painted to be a leaf. And nobody painted it. It didn't, get a paint its offspring, and nothing painted it, and it's designed that way. It's genetics. It's in its DNA. Okay, the pheasant picture. And we talk about why the male is so colorful and the female is not so colorful in some bird species. And we finally come up with that the male wants to get attacked by the predator, and that's like what he wants to get attacked by the predator, but that seems to be how it's designed. It's colorful to attract the predator to it. Then it's not just going to stay there and get attacked. It's going to run or fly or do something, but it's going to attract the predator to it, and that's to protect the females. And then it flies away. And so, it's colorful maybe to attract a mate, but they all kind of look the same, and then to attract the predator to it. I got too close to a killdeer nest one time, and it started making a bunch of noise and was dragging its leg on the ground to make it look like it was hurt, and it was trying to attract me to it to get it away from its eggs. And then if I got too close, then it just jumped up and flew away. So birds are designed, the males, some species, to attract the predator to it to protect the female. Plant designs. Some are designed to be in water, and so they're made to float. A coconut it's not like completely hollow. There's some coconut milk in there, but it has some air space in there, so it's able to float. And the lily pods are able to float. The seeds are able to float. And so they're designed for being in water. Next, wind. If you grab one of those little maple helicopters that the maple trees are getting ready to make and look at it very, very closely, you can see the design, the engineering that went into making that be able to fly. And it doesn't, it's like Buzz Lightyear doesn't fly, he falls with style. The maple helicopter falls with style. And so as it's falling, it catches the wind to blow it a little ways away from the tree, and then the heavy part goes down and sinks into the soil so that a new tree can grow. And that's a design. The spores of a dandelion, if you look at them closely, you'll see the way they're designed to catch the wind, and the wind will actually lift them up because they're so light, carry them, who knows how far before they land. And then they can lay dormant for a long time before they actually turn into a dandelion or a thistle. Seeds by animals. So some seeds are designed to be dispersed by animals. And why are they colorful and made of sugar and they smell good? So they can be eaten. They want to be eaten. Why would they want to be eaten? So their seeds can be dispersed. They can't want anything. They don't want to be eaten. They're designed to be eaten. They're made so that we can have food, so we can eat the apple and the banana and get nourishment for our body. But they have a seed that's protected from our digestive system that then ends up getting excreted by the animal so that it can grow a new fruit. Same with nuts and seeds and fruits are designed to be eaten to give us food for our body, but also designed for regrowth, regeneration of that kind of plant. And then stick tights and cuckleburs are made to hook on animal fur, and then when the fur falls out or the cucklebur falls off, then you get a new plant. Okay, we're going to go to the biomimicry slide. And so the claim is nature has figured all this out. And so we have something called biomimicry, which is the copying of nature's design. And the claim is millions of years of natural processes has accidentally designed things. And we should look to nature for answers for our engineering problems. And the story is that nature has selected the best one. But how did the best one exist in the first place? How did if nature has selected the best one, that doesn't explain how the best one was created. And so the evolutionary answer is mutations, but mutations are most of the time damaging instead of helpful. And the truth that Jesus designed everything in nature, and we could learn a lot from his work. And he doesn't have it copyrighted. He's not going to take you to court from copying his design. And so, next slide, Jesus created the universe. The greatest scientist of all time is Jesus Christ. And John 1 through 3, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and through God, and the Word was with God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. So Christ was there in the beginning, and through him all things were made, and for him all things were made. And without him nothing was made. John 1:10, he was in the world, and through the world was made. Through him the world did not recognize him. It should be by. So he was in the Word, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. Colossians 1:16, for by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him. And in Hebrews 1:2, hath in these last days spoken unto us, by whom his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. And so just a quick glance through some biomimicry, and we used cuckleburs to come up with the idea for Velcro, and we studied shark skin to make swimming suits that Olympians wore in the first Olympics, that they were allowed to wear these shark skin suits. They broke a bunch of world records. And gecko tape is a tape that's designed based on the paws of a gecko to make it more sticky. And then this car, which I've never actually seen in real life, but it was based on the design of the boxfish, which is the most aerodynamic fish that we know of. Okay, skip down to Earth designed for life. And so the Earth is in something called the Goldilocks zone, which is the distance from the sun for liquid water. So we have to have liquid water. And we're at just the right distance from the sun for that to be, which maybe that's an accident, but it doesn't seem to be that way when we take into account all the other factors about the earth. And so since the earth is tilted, then we get an effect that lets most of the earth be livable, because sometimes we're tilted toward the sun and sometimes we're tilted away. So we warm up, cool down, warm up, cool down. If it were forever summer, it would just keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. We wouldn't have a chance to cool down. So we need that winter season to cool down. And then you say, what about the equator? Well, the sun's not focused on the equator all year. Even though it's warm near the equator all year, it still goes up and down, up and down. So the center of the sun goes up to the Tropic of Cancer and down to the Tropic of Capricorn. And so it's not focused in the same spot day after day after day. And so then we get an earth that's mostly livable. The same thing with the spin of the earth. It takes Mercury 58 days to rotate. So if it took the earth that long, then that would be 29 days of daylight. If it was daylight for 29 straight days, no darkness, it would be way too hot. One side of Mercury is super hot. And I mean, it's closer to the sun, but even if it were not, that's still too much daylight. And the other side is really, really cold, because 29 days of not ever seeing the sun, that would be super cold. And so our spin is designed just perfect, where we warm up and we cool down, and we warm up and we cool down. And by morning, when you get up, it's like, really cold right now. But then by the end of the day, it's not too bad. And then we cool down again, and then we warm up again. And so the spin of the earth, the tilt of the earth, and the location it is from the sun makes most of the earth livable. The atmosphere. The earth has a thin layer of gas surrounding it called the atmosphere. This atmosphere is just as important to life as liquid water and is not found on any other planet in our solar system. And so I'll get back to the gravity of the earth. The gravity is just right to hold our atmosphere in place. If we didn't have enough gravity, the atmosphere would escape. And if we had too much gravity, then the atmosphere may be too thick, but also we wouldn't be able to move around. We would weigh more. So like if Jupiter was tropical, we wouldn't be able to live there because there's too much gravity. We would be crushed. We wouldn't be able to move. It's back to the air. Air has no color, odor, or taste. If it were even slightly opaque, our world would be totally dark. Ocean water looks fairly clear, but 200 feet down, the sunlight is nearly gone. If this were the case with air, we would have everlasting night, and plants could not produce the food that animals need to survive. Without air, there would be no clouds to bring rain. There would be no way for birds and airplanes to fly. With nothing to scatter light in the blue sky, we would see the blackness of space. There would be no talking, chirping, barking, or any other sound that travels through the air. How boring. The atmosphere allows some of the sun's energy to warm the earth and then holds that heat in like a blanket. This is known as the greenhouse effect. It's been given a bad name because some scientists think that we're increasing it with pollutants, but it's important for life on Earth for us to have that heat blanket that holds some of the sun's heat in and also lets some escape. The upper portion of the stratosphere contains a layer of molecules known as the ozone. Ozone is 3 oxygen molecules bonded together. The ozone layer filters a great deal of harmful ultraviolet radiation that would destroy life on Earth. So we have this layer of sun protectant up there. And how did that get there? Well, because God put it there. Water appears to be designed for life. When water is pure, it is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. It's the only substance on Earth that can be a solid, liquid, and gas in Earth's normal range of temperatures. Nearly every substance in the world expands as it warms and contracts as it cools. But water is different. As it cools, it continues to contract, and then a few degrees before it freezes, and it begins expanding. As it continues to cool below freezing, it continues to expand, making it less dense as a solid than it is as a liquid. This allows the ice to float on the water instead of sinking into filling the lakes and ponds with ice in the winter. Instead, a layer of ice forms on top, insulating the water below from frigid temperatures, allowing fish, frogs, plants and other organisms to survive the winter. So we had a cold blast, and for several weeks it was as cold as it's been around here, and my pond froze, and it only got to be about 3 inches thick, because on top of the ice it snowed, and so it insulated the waters underneath to help keep them from freezing, and the fish and the turtles and the frogs were able to live down there and survive. And so it like defies the laws of physics that as it gets colder, it expands after it freezes instead of shrinking. Water has the ability to climb against the pull of gravity. It's known as capillary action. And this unique characteristic of water allows it to pull itself through body tissues, soil, and all the way to the tops of trees standing hundreds of feet in the air. Surface tension is the ability of a substance to stick to itself and resist the push of an outside force. Water has one of the highest surface tensions of any substance. Water molecules cling together so tight that insects can walk on them. It allows the water to form a barrier between two objects, creating a lubricant for water slides, and more importantly, our digestive system and blood vessels. And so we're running out of time, so just skipping ahead. Most of the stuff I just said was all science. And I don't really see any reason why we can't teach that we live in a designed world in the classroom, but I know it's not happening. And I know what's being taught instead. Even in my class, even though I try to avoid it, it's still there because it's ingrained in the resources that I use, and the videos that I show, and the textbooks that I have. What is ingrained in there is evolutionary ideas that there was a big bang that created, and then somehow life organized itself into life. And so from that, people are able to infer there is no God, and then refer back to the atheist video at the beginning, and people say, well, we haven't seen the evidence. Well, we haven't shown them the evidence. It's not. Why do we need to hide it from them? It's clear. It's obvious that we live in a designed world. There's artwork all over the place. There's engineering. There's planning. There's organization. And all of those require an intelligent creator. And so I just want to close with the video by Carrie Underwood and Vince Gill, How Great Thou Art, because God is amazing.